I firmly believe that if you spend some time reviewing the sewing pattern and its sizing chart, you can confidently anticipate the fitting changes you may need to make to the pattern in order to make it fit you. This seemingly extra step will ultimately save you time by improving your chances of achieving a good fit much more quickly. I'm Alexandra Morgan from In-House Patterns and In-House Pattern Studio. I teach pattern making and fitting to people who love to sew. This week, I'm sharing an inside look at how I assess and prepare a sewing pattern before I sew. I am featuring the Belle sewing pattern in this video, but you can use the same pattern assessment principles with any pattern. The fitting process that I use is fully outlined in the Perfect Fit Guide. Now, this is a free document that you can download, and it gives you all the steps that you need to take in order to really fine-tune the fitting of any sewing pattern. You can download it with the link that I will leave for you somewhere on this page. Now, when I start a sewing project, I always take a close look at the sewing pattern before I even do anything with it. And I want to do that simply because I want to understand how the pattern designer has designed the pattern. And I also want to understand the measurements that they have used to create the pattern. So in the booklet for the Belle Blouse, you're going to see a body measurement size chart as well as some finished garment measurements. Now, these are not a complete list of all the body measurements. These are just simply here to help you choose your size. Online, you will also find an extended version of the body measurements chart, and I will leave a link to that for you as well, because I understand that you likely won't be able to see these small numbers. Now, I have already sort of taken a look at the sewing pattern. You can see here that the Belle Blouse I've traced it off here in the size that I want to work with. So I've chosen size 12 based on my body measurements and the fact that the pattern is a D cup size. So what I'm looking for here is plotting some of the information that I found inside the booklet and in the sizing chart that will help me to determine how this pattern is going to fit me, so I can actually make alterations to it before I sew. So one of the first things that I start with is always the back. And I want to first always make my alterations for length, because I know the proportion of this size 12 pattern does not match my own, because I am not as tall as the body that the pattern was designed for, and I have different proportions, meaning the measurements are located on the pattern in different areas. So I know that the center back neck to waist measurement for the size 12 pattern for the Belle Blouse is 16 7/8. That's a body measurement. So I know automatically that I'm going to have to reduce the center back length in order to accommodate my body, which is only 15 inches. So when I measure my personal body measurement, it's 15 inches, but the pattern is actually built for somebody who has a center back neck to waist of 16 7/8 of an inch. So automatically I can quickly do some math and decide how much shorter I need to make the pattern between the back neck and the waistline position. So that is really easy alteration to make. It's simply a matter of slashing and overlapping the amount that you need. And you can see here I've overlapped it by 1 7/8 of an inch. Now, the next thing I'm going to take a look at is another length segment, which is the waist to hip level. And the waist to hip level on the size 12 pattern, as it's indicated in the sizing chart, which is available for you online, is 8.5 inches. Now, my personal body measurement is 10 inches, so I automatically know that I need to add length to the pattern between the waist and the hip line. So I can alter my pattern for that length easily, and I already know that as soon as I make those length adjustments, I've already put the contours of the pattern or the shape of the pattern in the correct position for me. Just those two adjustments has already made the pattern fit me better. Now, whenever you make initial pattern adjustments for length, whatever you do to the back, you will mimic on the front. So if you shorten the center back neck to waist by 1 7/8 of an inch like I did, you're gonna have to also do that to the front pattern piece. If you lengthened it below the waistline by any amount, you know that you're going to have to make that same adjustment to the front. This is just part of making these initial pattern adjustments that's going to get you a little bit closer to a better fitting garment right at the outset. So these adjustments are going to hopefully save you at least one sample if you can determine what changes you need to make for length and put everything in the proper place for yourself. Now, you might be wondering how I determined where the shoulder, the waist, the high hip, and the hip line positions are. And this is when I took a look at the sizing chart and I saw the measurements that were available to me there. I also have cues on the pattern that will also help me find those locations. You'll notice here that I have a notch here and a notch here. And these just happen to be in an area of the pattern that happens to be sort of dipping in and also coming out. So this is a really good clue that these are actually the locations at the side seam for the position of the waist and the hip line. Now I can determine the position of the high hip line by using the shaping that is here in the back pleats. I can see that there is a sort of coming in of these stitching lines for the pleats, so that tells me that this is likely the high hip area. So I've just simply indicated that as the high hip line position. I can also see that that position is also about halfway between those positions. So all I've done is sort of use the information that I have here on the pattern to help me determine those positions. Now, because I know a little bit about pattern making, I can also make an assumption that there is actually excess fabric that is indicated in here in order to help me form the pleats. So this tells me that I can actually make those balance lines slightly curved to accommodate that shaping that's going to be there. Now, if you're brand new to fitting using balance lines, like I said, you can try using them, try finding them, but if you find that you don't have enough information or enough knowledge to figure out where they are, just let it go and do your best with the sample as it is without the balance line. But you'll find that as you start actually really taking some time looking at the pattern and sort of discovering its shape and the areas of the pattern that might have notches or styling details that will give you clues, you will get better and better at finding them. So up here, to sort of discover the shoulder line and how wide the shoulder is going to be based on the comparison between the pattern measurement and my body measurement, the sizing chart told me that the size 12 body measurement is 16 inches for the shoulder width. Now my body measurement is actually 15, so it's 1 inch smaller, but you can see how little difference it becomes on the half. So I don't really think I need to make any sort of shoulder width adjustment because of the styling that has been created here. It's a dropped shoulder styles or extended shoulder line, so this isn't that important. So I can actually test this so that I can see how it looks like on me. It's a very small difference, not something I'm going to worry about initially until I see a sample. So this is how you can sort of assess the fit of the sample when you actually just spend a little bit of time looking at the sizing chart and the pattern styling and how it's actually working. As you use this method more and more, you'll find that you'll get faster and better at it over time. Now I do want to show you the front pattern piece as well. And you'll notice here that I have made the same adjustments to the front pattern piece as I did to the back. So I already mentioned that whatever you do to the back for your length adjustments, you are also going to the front. So what I've done here is I've reduced my waist to neckline position by that 1 7/8 of an inch. And I've also added the 3/4 of an inch to each of these, that 1.5 inch total to the front length between the waist and the hip line. Now the reason I've split that 1.5 inch difference between the waist and high hip and hip is simply because I want these particular style lines, this shaping that's in the pleats, to land at the correct position for my body. So I want to keep that high hip line position approximately midway between the waist and the hip. Now, the only other additional change that I've made to the front is I have made a cup size adjustment. Now, this pattern has been built for a D cup. My cup size is a double D or an E, you can call it. So what I've done here automatically, because I already know that my cup size is not the same as the pattern, I've increased the cup size of the pattern by 1 inch total, meaning I've adjusted this pattern so that I've increased it half the front pattern piece by ½ inch. So this allows me to have enough width in the front pattern and enough length in order to go over my slightly larger cup size. Now, I did want to focus a little bit on the measurements of the pattern, because you can see here that I have actually added some body measurements and the measurements of the pattern, and I've determined how much ease is going to be in that pattern for those measurements. This is so that I have an idea of how much ease I'm going to be working with when I go to fit my sample. So it's always a good idea to measure the pattern if you can find the waist, the high hip, the hip, or the bust line. Sometimes these positions are not easy to find and they're not always straight, so it's sometimes a little bit difficult. So that's when you can use the pattern envelope information for the finished measurements of the garment, and it will actually help you make these decisions and figure out how much ease there is. Now, if you can't find the information, it's not available, you just have to simply continue with your fitting. So what this whole process is about is trying to eliminate as many potential fitting issues right out of the gate. But if you don't have the information to solve those potential issues, then you just simply have to rely on your sample. Now you can see here that I have measured the waist, the high hip, because I've been able to find them and locate them, and the hip girth. And when I take a look at the waist measurement of the pattern and the body measurement, I can see here that it has 2 3/4 inch of ease. Now, I don't want to really change that, so I have actually just left that as it is. But you'll see here the original numbers for the high hip area, I had 0 ease in this area. So what I've done is I've simply made the pleats a little bit smaller so that I can add measurement to this area of the pattern. And all I've done is added an 1/8 inch to each of these pleats, and I've been able to actually create the pattern that has 2½ inches of ease. So sometimes small incremental changes can make a really big difference as you kind of work with the pattern measurements. If you were to sew this up and it was too small, you'd probably get frustrated and want to quit. But if you actually prepare yourself ahead of time with some measurements, and even if they're not exactly accurate, it will give you some idea of what it's going to be. Now you can see here I've pulled down exactly, I've also added to the hip girth as well, because originally I could see before I made this change of decreasing the pleat depth, I only had 1 3/4 inch at the hip line. And I know that if I'm going to wear this blouse while seated, I'm going to need more ease in that area. So I've actually, adding that 1/8 inch to each of these pleats, I've actually been able to create about 4 1/4 inches of ease simply by changing the depth of each of these pleats. Now you do have the option to add or remove measurement at the side, but quite honestly, often you will get a better fit if you change sort of incrementally all the different areas of the pattern if those styling details are available to you. Now we can focus on the front just a little bit more, and I want to point out that next week I'm going to be showing you exactly how to make this cup size adjustment. It might be very clear to you already, so if you've taken pattern making courses before and you're comfortable making adjustments to patterns, by all means you can probably just take a look at this pattern and understand how to make that cup size adjustment. But I do want to point out that when you make a cup size adjustment, often you will sort of be confused as to where the bust point actually is. Now, on this particular pattern, the bust level is about 3 inches below the base of the neckline here. So that's just on the pattern, it's about 3 inches. The actual precise location of the bust point isn't that important on this pattern because we don't have any darts that we need to worry about. So because of that case, we can sort of just approximate the position of the bust point. So what I've done here is I have simply chosen the 3 inches down from the base of the front neckline, and I've divided the distance between the 2 pleats in half, and I've extended that up to the bust line level. And that intersecting point is I have made it a bust point. Now, if you want to double check to see what that position is, you can definitely take a measurement. Now, if you join the yoke piece to the body of the front pattern piece here, you can actually take a quick measurement to know what position the bust point is on the pattern based on your body. So if you choose that 3 inches down and also midway between the pleats here as your bust point position, you can do a quick measure of it to see where it lands and where it might land on your body if the shoulder area and neckline area is fitting you well. I can see here it's 11 inches, which is very close to my measurement. Now, with the cup size adjustment, you do have the option of choosing any point here between the amount that you've added here, which in this case is 1/2 inch. But I can see here that if my bust line is a little bit lower, I can actually choose this as my bust point. I'll go over that in greater detail next week when I show you how the bust cup size works. It's important to remember the goal of the initial pattern adjustments is to align the sewing pattern to your personal body measurements and proportions. The more information that you have available to you, the more precise these adjustments can be. But it's not necessary to have all the information. Simply use the information that you have available to you. It's best not to make pattern alterations based on wild guesses. Gather as much information as you can, use your current fitting knowledge, and alter your pattern accordingly. Test your fitting decisions with a sample. I guarantee you will build your fitting skills very quickly this way. If you're following along with this video series, join in on the conversation inside the private Facebook group. You can share your questions and progress with others who are also following along. Coming up in the next video, I'll be showing you how to make a cup size adjustment on a pattern without traditional darts. I hope you'll tune in. I'll chat with you soon. Bye for now.